welcome everyone to this amazing event. This is collaboration between iDebate Rwanda and Irvine Debate Program, Irvine Valley Debate Program. What we are hoping is to get students from across the world and students from different backgrounds to come and discuss and debate about issues that are affecting our world community. And tonight we're very excited as iDebate to partner with the Irvine Valley College Forensic Program. And I would like to welcome Jules French to come and give a few opening remarks and then also to introduce her team.
Thank you, Jean-Michel. Hello, my name is Jules French, and I'm the co-director of Irvine Valley College's Speech and Debate team, along with my co-director, Bill Neeson. I wanted to say thank you so much for having us. I cannot express our gratitude enough. When this pandemic hit and we were dealing with anxiety and stress and uncertainty and not sure how we were going to continue any kind of international program, we called Jean-Michel up and he had this amazing idea to make lemonade out of lemons, and let's get together and get our students involved with the students in Rwanda. So I'm so grateful for this experience. We actually had the pleasure of hosting iDebate Rwanda back in 2018, but back then we were IBC versus Rwanda. And what I love about this particular debate is that we do have friendship teams. So our teams are coming together. It's not going to be IBC versus Rwanda. Instead, we're going to work together. Now I'd like to introduce our three debaters from Irvine Valley College. First off, our award-winning persuasive speaker, we have Sedona Taloma. We have the unstoppable Bahar Kersi. And of course, her partner and a fire novice, we have Gotham Krishna Kumar. Now, without further ado, I'd like to send it back to Jean-Michel.
It's almost 2 years ago when we held a debate at the auditorium. It was filled with a lot of students and we had a great time. And so on the side of iDebate, we have three students. We have Mel Gasana, who is very intelligent and very brilliant student who I think has a great future ahead of her. We have Enoch Utaganda. Enoch has been in iDebate for the last 4 years. And then, of course, we have Bertrand Yishimo. And Bertrand has also been in iDebate as a debater, and then now he works as one of our volunteers. And we're very, very excited to see this debate. And just like Joseph said, this is a debate where we are far more interested in the students building friendship and then also in them exchanging ideas, which are very important. And so for tonight's debate, the format is going to be very simple. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes, and after their 5 minutes, there's going to be a cross-examination from the other team of 2 minutes. And the motion for tonight is: this House would get rid of the party system and require all candidates for general election to run as independents. I repeat, this House would get rid of the party system and require all candidates for general election to run as independents. And without further ado, I'd like to call on the first speaker who is affirming this motion to come and give their speech, not exceeding 5 minutes.
Hi everyone, before I start, I just want to say I'm Bahar Khazri and I'm from Irvine Valley College, and today I will be the first speaker for this exciting debate. With that, I'm going to start my time. The resolution for today is that this House would get rid of the party system and requires all candidates for general election to run as independents. Observation 1 is definitions. We define this House as the U.S. federal government. Candidates is the presidential candidates, party system is like Republicans and Democrats, and independents is the third parties. Subpoint B is the net benefits, more accurate presidential elections and happier citizens. Subpoint C is that we define this round as a policy round. Moving on to my observation to the background, the two main presidential candidates are Democrats and Republicans. Every year there are also third-party candidates who are independent candidates, but their chances of winning compared to Democrat Party and Republicans is near zero. So the plan for today is that U.S. federal government will require presidential candidates to run as independents. There is no funding assigned to this as there is no funding needed. And the time frame is after the 2020 elections, so for the following election after that. Moving on to my advantage 1. Candidates can have their own values. Now, what I mean by that is that for now, if they are running as Republicans, they have set values, and same goes for Democrats. But running as third parties, they can be their individual selves with new values. Subpoint A is that when running as Democrats or Republicans, the candidates have to stick to the party's old values. For example, for Democrats, the economic ideas is that minimum wage and progressive taxation. But for Republicans, economic ideas means that believe taxes shouldn't be increased for anyone. Going back to Democrats, their stance on abortion is that they should remain legal. For Republicans, their stance on abortion is that it should not be legal. And all of this is based on the website defend.com. And so with that said, my subpoint B is that this creates conflict if the candidate agrees with some points of their party but not the others. If the candidate is running as individual, then they could share their own beliefs, and that would add a lot more value to that presidential candidate and would make it a lot better for people to vote for them, as they will now know that they definitely believe in those ideas and they're not just following it because it's part of their party system's beliefs. Advantage 2 is that citizens will be happier. Subpoint A, according to NPR.org, 39% of people already rather register as independent voters rather than having to be part of any parties. The numbers of Democrats is 32% and Republicans is 23%. So people are already going towards that route. So why shouldn't we make it easier for them and make it better by having the party system removed at all? Subpoint B is that my opponents might argue that, well, if they can already register as independent voters, then what's the problem? Well, the problem is that they can only do that in few states in the United States and not all of them. For example, in Nevada, voters have to choose between the parties, so they cannot be individual voters. And subpoint C is that the independent voters are not taken seriously and nobody believes their votes has a chance of winning the election. But if it is just individual candidates, then the individual voters do have a chance to get their candidate elected and won that round of election. So therefore, their voices will matter more, so citizens will be happier. Advantage 3 is the fair chance for all. When there are two main parties of Democrats and Republicans, third parties don't stand a chance that much. And it is hard for new parties to achieve a viable degree of proportional representation, according to know.usembassy.gov. And subpoint C is that history has proven that third-party candidates can be good for our country. President Roosevelt, for his second round of election, ran as a third-party candidate in the history candidate in the history of U.S. And he was the first third-party candidate who was able to win the election. And he is the one who pulled us out of the Great Depression. So therefore, we see that being a third-party candidate doesn't mean being weak, doesn't mean that their values don't matter. It actually can be really good for our country. And therefore, with that said, when this resolution would give candidates their own values, would make citizens happier and would give a fair chance to all. So for that, for all those reasons, Judge, I urge you to vote for the affirmative. Thank you.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
According to your plan, will anyone be allowed to run as an independent? As in anyone, just as long as you want?
Anyone who's already eligible to run as a candidate can run as independent. So if they were eligible to run as a Republican or Democrat, now they can also run as a free independent candidate.
So will the criteria for running as an independent and Republican not change? I mean, as a party system not change the requirements that you need to to run for either? As in to run for an independent, will not?
Their eligibility will not change, so if they already met the criteria to run as a presidential candidate, they can still run as a presidential candidate under the same criteria and the same eligibility formats.
So we'd like to thank the first speaker on the affirmative side, and we'll love now to call on the first speaker on the negative side to come and give their speech not exceeding 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sedona Taloma, and I resolve that getting rid of the party system in favor of independent campaigns would be catastrophic to the function of democracy. Democracy's biggest critique is its inefficient plurality, as political action is pulled in so many different directions, as the first affirmative already stated. By adding in more policies, we're just allowing for more plurality and therefore more chaos. We need this two-party system because otherwise, politicians would never be united enough to work on getting policies passed together. First, the two-party system works in favor of democracy as the electorate is not educated enough to vote without the cues the party system offers. And that's not a bad thing. It's a natural product of democracy and something that the two-party system corrects for. Only 36% of American citizens can pass our own U.S. citizenship test, according to a national survey done by the Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Foundation. The electorate cannot keep up to date on politicians' specific policies, even when their focus is only on the two main party candidates. They will not be able to keep up with the magnitude. The two-party system corrects for this by providing party cues for uneducated voters to follow, allowing the electorate to know that since they agree on main issues, this party will advocate in their best interest. This trend of voting based on party alignment is reflected in Pew Researchers' findings that 88% of Senate elections are won by candidates who belong to or were aligned with the party that won the state's most recent presidential race, showing voters vote based on party, not politician, and not on policy. Second, an independent candidate system means that there will be a transfer of power to the media, as the uneducated electorate will vote based on name recognition rather than party affiliation, turning the election into a mockery of democracy. Executive Director and political scientist Regina Lawrence of the University of Oregon states that the biggest thing that drives elections is simple name recognition. There will be less incentive for independent candidates to make good on their promises to the electorate, since the media determines re-election rather than public opinion. Trump himself is a great example of the phenomena of winning elections based on earned media, which the New York Times defines as media that is garnered by extreme actions or statements of the candidate to get more coverage. Trump's campaign has been based almost exclusively on earned media and proves its success as the New York Times reports he has garnered $2 billion worth of media coverage from basically pulling political stunts. Media coverage incentivizes less professional behavior, and with the competition of the plurality, this problem will only be exacerbated, bastardizing elections and debates into reality TV specials. Furthermore, plurality sows confusion and silences voices, creating the spoiler effect in elections and splitting the vote. The Center of Election Science reports that a spoiler is a non-winning candidate whose presence in the ballot affects which candidate wins. In the 2016 election, over 4 million votes went to third-party candidates like Libertarian Gary Johnson and Joe Stein of the Green Party, causing neither candidate to capture half of the vote and ultimately leading to the election of Donald Trump, whose blatant lack of qualification to run a country is evident from the deaths of over 200,000 American citizens caused by his negligence towards the COVID pandemic. Even with the two-party system in place, splitting the vote is already dangerous. With all independent candidates, the confusion and chaos would be tenfold. To put it simply, we know independent candidates don't work. Our history shows us the dangers of the plurality. We switched from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution because we understood that there needed to be a more central control of power. The plurality of democracy left unchecked leads to chaos. Therefore, I strongly encourage the judges to vote for the negation.
Thank you very much, Taloma, for your good insights. So I'd like to ask one question before you leave. What do you call democracy and how do you define democracy?
I define democracy as a system in which the electorate is able to choose and vote for the politicians that represent them and therefore have some control over the policies that are passed.
So why do you think that democracy is more supported when the party system is used instead of using the independent candidates, and yet democracy is the government of people, by people, to people, and individual candidates are also people?
Individual candidates are also people, but I'm speaking solely based on the electorate and the electorate's ability to have their own voices. Specifically, when citizens are in their natural lives, they are not able to spend all the time doing research on all of these different policies. I'm advocating for their ability to have their own lives, but also be able to vote effectively and get the policies that they ask for passed, since they can follow the voter cues of the two-party system. The two-party system allows for people to understand what they're voting for and what their politicians will actually get passed. It allows for a sense of trust between the politician and the electorate themselves.
So I think you're taking us in only 2 lines, and yet the independent candidate would come and bring an innovation and bring a new idea that's not between those 2 parties.
The independent candidate will allow for a lot of new ideas, but that doesn't mean that they will be able to garner enough of support to actually win an election. In fact, by splitting all of these votes, less people will be able to get the policies they want to pass.
Thank you. Would like to call on the second speaker on the affirmative side to come and present their case.
Thank you very much. I am the second speaker on the affirmative side, and I've come here to say yes to the motion. We are debating that party system should be abolished and instead replaced with the fact that candidates are running as independents. So I'm going to first start with refuting what the negative side has said. They came and then they say that they agree that main issues are put part in one party system. I first want to start saying that in a party system, it doesn't mean that all members of one party systems agree upon the same thing. Before a candidate is chosen to represent the Republican side or the Democratic side, they have a debate between themselves in order to choose one candidate that gets the most votes in that same party. So I want to clarify the point that party systems doesn't mean that all members of one party system think the same or believe the same things, but instead are obliged to go through the same lines because they belong to one party system. You say that they vote according to fame of a candidate. Either way, with Democrats means that people care less about the person that they're going to vote for, less about the candidate and the president that they're going to elect to rule their country, and more of the side of this person is a Democrat or this person is a Republican. This point of fame being the issue of it all, I think it doesn't change either way, because once you belong to a certain party system, a certain party, people are going to vote for you because you belong to that party. Second, you say that Trump campaigns have won from media coverage. I still want to say that from the perspective of looking at it from independents being able to win because they have fame, how about with party systems? Trump, you could have said he won because the majority of people in the government and the parliament were Republicans. And this fact doesn't change, because now as independents, people are going to vote only based solely on the fact that the policies that this candidate is going to advocate for are going to be able to solve problems that they're facing, that these voters are facing in their lives. You said that the two-party system enforces trust. I first of all want to say, I'm going to tackle that point through my speech with the arguments that I'm going to bring up, but then you say that they won't earn enough votes as independents. If we get rid of party systems, why wouldn't independents win? The only reason why independents don't go far in this election is because party systems exist and people take those more seriously. But if we abolish party systems completely, it's going to increase the chance of independents going far into the US election. I'm going to get into my points on what we are advocating for as the affirmative side. So first of all, we're setting a boundary around the United States of America, meaning that we'll be providing and explaining the advantages of independence of running as candidates looking at it from the advantages from the candidates as well as from voters. So our first argument is that there is more confidence in voters as the right leaders are being elected. The fact that now candidates are running as independents means that voters are able to vote based solely on the fact that the candidate is going to solve their problems and less on the fact that they're Republicans or Democrats, or that they're lifelong loyal to that party. They may be a family, a man argues that my grandpa, my great-grandparents have been Republicans all their life. Therefore, I do not care the leader I'm voting for. Instead, I'm only caring because I'm loyal to this party. This is going to help with voters picking the right leader that is going to help this country to rise into development and growth, instead of being the reason for its downfall, as the leader being elected is being elected for the right reasons. Also, there is a high chance for the independents, as there is no longer party systems that diminish their chance for going into the elections. Therefore, less votes go into waste. This means that they're going to elect leaders based off their character, based off the policies that they're advocating for, and solely removed from the fact that they belong to a party system that family has been voting for a very long time. So there's also going to be a reduction in conflict. In the government and parliament, there is high rates of division inside the government as well as the parliament. This causes conflict between Republicans, making sure that they don't get along with Democrats. And this means that the two sides can come together to discuss and conclude on important solutions that are going to benefit the American people. Instead of making it like a peaceful sort of togetherness to come up with solutions that are going to benefit people, it becomes a rivalry between the two parties. It shouldn't be this way. Instead, members of parliament and the government should come together to combine ideas and solutions to better the lives of the citizens. And the only other alternative that's going to solve this issue of rivalry and conflict is abolishing the party systems and implementing candidates and as independents in order to reduce the division that is going down into the people between the country, where there's divisions between Americans based on which party they support. There's division and going against each other because they are Republicans and I'm a Democrat, so I hate them and I go against them and I can't work with them. We need to stop dividing Americans. We need to stop promoting issues or alternatives that are dividing Americans and instead turn to independence in order to reduce this division and conflict. We are also advocating for the fact that party systems promote corruption. They promote so much corruption because party systems, first of all, they need funds. They need funds and they are funded by big corporate businessmen and rich people, which they usually call lobbyists. This means that once they are in power, a party will work towards that, what benefits the rich men and not what is going to help the nation. This means that if we abolish this, independents run and they run for the policies that are going to benefit the people and maybe even the Black communities at large, and instead on what's not going to only benefit the white men or the rich people, the businessmen. And lastly, it's more of party politics instead of the right leaders of the United States of America. So leaders in the parliament and government are not going to be driven by ego and greed for power, where it's more of Democrats haven't won in such a long time. We need to make sure we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that Democrats, Republicans win this time because they haven't won, in a long time. So it's less about ego and greed for power and more on choosing and electing the right leader that's going to drive the United States of America to greater days that it hasn't seen before. So I rest my case saying that we believe that party systems should be abolished and instead replaced with independent candidates to better the future of the American people. Thank you very much.
System is corrupt because it depends on companies to fund their campaigns, but are you implying that independent candidates won't need money to run?
I'm not saying that the independent candidates don't need money to run. I'm only saying that now they're going to come in with their own income. They're not going to need funds to be able to run their whole party system. This is going to reduce corruption in the sense that we don't rely, it's not like because party systems run on the idea that they have to pay back what they've been given. But now if independent candidates come in, they're running with the money that they have and they qualify for everything and they're running with the money that they have, there's no need for them to be able to have that idea of they have to pay back for what they've been given or what they've been funded.
So do you think that independent candidates won't need support or external funds in order to gain more media coverage?
Not as much as party systems, because party systems need so much money to run. That's the first thing. It's not only the campaigns, but also the state, the members, the supporters. It needs so much more money to run compared to independents on their own.
So how do you think that independent candidates are going to create name recognition for themselves when they don't have a party to be that buzzword for them, the voter queue?
First of all, we stress the point of how they're going to get fame from their policies and the new ideas that they're advocating for. It's no longer going to be the idea of I am of the Republicans and that's why you should vote for me. I am of the Democrats and that's why you should vote for me. It's going to be about these are the policies that I'm bringing to the table. And if it's going to benefit you and your family, then you should vote for me, because we're trying to better the lives of Americans instead of rather, it's no longer for fame of a party system or just for ego, or as I said before, greed of power of the party systems.
All right, thank you. I'd like to call on the second speaker on the negative side to give a speech not exceeding 5 minutes.
Thank you. You have to bear with me because I sort of cut off a bit. So I'm not hear all of Merle's speech, but however, I'll proceed. So firstly, I'd like to start by replying to a question Bertrand asked before. When he's talking about party systems, people do not usually bring new ideas. But I wanted to refute this by telling you that in party systems, people usually do bring new ideas. And for example, the ideas that are not passed in party systems are probably because they're not ideas better for the country. And I'd like to let you know that in the US, 81% of independents continue to the Democratic or Republicans. So that means that already the people trying to run for independence already agree with almost wholly with either the Democrats or the Republicans. So when you look at it, an independent running in the United States is basically that until 19% of people who do not who have a different view. And to continue to talk about this, when independent they basically bring their own ideas. So an independent come with an idea that is a radicalist idea, or an idea that is not agreed by people. But then because they have the money or because they have the certain advantage, and now they can go say whatever they want. However, comes this argument, party systems bring a sense of organization. When you have money in a party, you have to report back to certain people. You have to talk to certain people before you pass certain things. If you're an independent, you could literally wake up one day as a president and say this and this without any back, because you're doing it as. Thing that people want like the dictator does, but then the party system allows you to have a group of people to go to, a group of people with experts, to have experts to talk about certain things. So being an independent is basically bringing someone that draws the people at any time. And to apply to the arguments that Merle brought to the table, to go in the US, Republicans, Democrats, all this. Sometimes you have to think of sometimes what exactly is the problem you're talking about. Though they have different ideas does not mean that it is a problem. Obviously, in what the problem today and the world of LinkedIn, people do not usually have the same idea. So party systems don't necessarily mean conflict, then they mean the expression of different ideas. And how exactly will independence stop that problem? Because if independence come, there's let's say there's multiple people with different ideas. An independent could come with an idea that no one else agrees with, and then different independents come and then everybody talks about different things, and eventually it creates a conflict because there will be more people with different ideas. And obviously, as human beings, we tend to lead to one such idea. So in the end, people will end up supporting the certain person and ending up debating against or fighting against a large group of people. And you talked about how party systems have corruption. But then I'd like to ask you a question yourself. How do independents curb corruption. Because in my opinion, in a party system, a group of people, the experts, with different people, they have certain degrees and certain things, and there are a group of people that usually convene together to talk about certain issues. And then you look at the other hand, when you have an independent, is this person who's alone and he's given this certain amount of money, now he's running the country, he's given all these different things. What is that person using that money, putting in wherever he wants, buying himself a yacht, buying himself a new house, buying, traveling and doing all this. However, in a party system, you have to convene, you have to talk to each other. Although corruption in party systems, I agree, but I believe in a system that is run by independents, there is more corruption that come about. And at the end of the week, we talked about how independents come with the money, and then parties have they have to get certain funds, and then because they have to pay back. I think, in my opinion, because they have to pay, because they took certain funds from the community, then they're more obliged and they're more, they have a high incentive to do their job, and that's what they've asked for. Because you can see that this is something that they want to do, and they took people's money. Go by second argument, what is for certain points to people? If, for example, in the when he was running, if there was an independent, do you think Barack Obama would have had enough money to run as an independent? Do you think he would have had enough support? Because when you run as an independent, you're basically doing it off your own money and everything. But then, because he was part that was with him, and then he was able to be he was able to be elected. And then due to this, he was able to become the first black president of the United States, and brought healthcare reforms, better access to education, and more different things. So as a result of the party system, he was empowered, and he was able to come to power, and he did great things for the United States of America. So that is why I believe an independent system is rogue and cannot be trusted, and why we should continue to support the party system. Thank you.
So you said that there is more disagreeing between independents that are running with different ideas. So I wanted to ask you, it's just a simple question, a simple answer. So do all candidates agree in one party? Do you think all candidates or all members of one party agree about the same things?
No, they do not.
Okay, so this means that you agree that there is disagreeing inside one party system.
Party system, not one party. When you say one party, sounds like a party system.
One party between, like, for example, the Republican, different members of the Republican Party can disagree about one issue.
Yes.
Okay, so this means that there is still conflict between one party system.
Yes, within the party, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we would like to call on the third speaker on the F to present the case for their side.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bertrand Dishimo, and I am shedding light on this motion which says that this House will get rid of the party system and requires all candidates for general elections to run as independents. When President Roosevelt was elected nearly a little bit before the Second World War, things got too much worse in the United States, and people were not having the same view as to whether that president would carry out his responsibilities well or not. But guess what? After the World War, he was able to relieve the country from the great economic depression that it was facing. And he was not a Republican, he was not a Democrat, he was an independent candidate. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand that we need to get out of these two modes, having two only opinions, because there are people outside there who have innovations, who can innovate the things through which we pass through. For example, if it is about abortion, some accept it, some do not. If it is about economic reforms, some based on taxation, some do not. But we need a way to innovate that and find a way to collect those solutions in a way that can benefit the both sides of the population. Of course, Republicans can do it, Democrats can do it, but we're tired of this way of doing things in a bilateral way. We can find another way to do things which is innovative. That's why we will support the independent candidates. That we've been voting a lot of Democrats, a lot of Republicans, but we need a bit of innovation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've talked to our dear opponents and showed them why we need the independent candidates. They've been talking about the party affiliation that will not take place. Instead, there will be media recognition. But I wanted to tell you, if you have some media, one of the largest media houses in the US, you have CNN. CNN is affiliated to Democrats. We also have Fox News, which is affiliated to Republicans. So there was one of my opponents here saying that if we make it independent candidates, then people will be voted based on media recognition instead of party affiliation. But I'm showing you that even the largest, some of them, which are even one of the biggest in the United States, they are affiliated to certain political parties. So we're not saving anything in that case. So what I'm saying is, if this team is not able to show us how we will bring innovation in these coming elections after 2020, which is our time frame, if this team is not able to show us how we are getting rid of this divisionism and discrimination, because we're having two parties in the United States, we're having Republicans, we're having Democrats, and everyone is looking at at their fellows, at their colleagues as Republicans or Democrats. But we need to get out of that. We need to have a new mindset. We need to have innovations and welcome independent candidates, because as I've given you the examples, we have things where those things work out. So if that team is not able to prove those two aspects about divisionism and about innovation, then we will take the debate. I rest my case, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, you go.
Oh, sorry. So, I had a quick question. So, regarding division, would you say that if every candidate ran independently, wouldn't that also play a role in dividing whatever party, whatever political state they were running in?
No, it won't. It won't, because there will be a lot of political parties in there, and people won't feel like you can be affiliated. Giving you a quick example, we have been having teams from here, Rwanda, to the United States going there. So we've talked about a lot about the genocide that took place in Rwanda. So the genocide took place mainly because there were two, can I call them, opposing ethnic groups. So when our teams from iDebate Rwanda went there, and the experience they had is some Americans were telling them, welcome to America, where you can teach us how those two ethnic groups fought, because we have that in America. We have Republicans and we have Democrats. Of course, I'm not saying 100% that Republicans and Democrats are prone to, to create this kind of violence and discrimination. But of course, as long as there are two groups which are opposing, which are all strong, the divisionism and the discrimination is more prone than there should be, a diversity of things, a variation, like 100 political parties or independent candidates. Thank you.
Okay, if I may ask one more thing. In your plan, I'm sure that sounds great, but I didn't really see any solvency. If there were two political parties, has there been any examples specifically of 100 political party or diverse areas where everyone runs independently and there's no conflict or any of the negative impacts that you state?
Well, Mr. Gotham, that's what we're talking about. Our limit is the United States, and it hasn't happened in the United States. But if our limit were the whole world, I will give you examples where there are more than 50 political parties and things are going well. So the problem is that our debate is limited to the United States, and it hasn't happened there. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We'd like to call on the third speaker on the opposition side to give the speech.
Hello, that would be me. I will start my time now. Hello, everyone. My name is Galvin Krishna Kumar, and I will be the third speaker. So to start, I'd like to expand on my partner Sedona's amazing point, which is that she made a great job making it really clear that that people like Donald Trump do divide this country and the political strata as a whole. And the fact of the matter is that independence will increase that even more. The two-party system allows the electorate to understand what they're voting for. I'd like to expand on this on saying that the magnitude of this far outweighs the anything the op has mentioned. If Donald Trump was this divisive as a Republican, how would the country be able to manage if 3 more Donald Trumps are running with a ton of funding and the ability to just be a character and then go out and be a politician? The country would not be able to handle it, and it wouldn't make any sense for us to go down that route even more when we saw how bad Donald Trump addressed COVID and the negative impacts of it. Currently, the impacts are seen right now, and my opponents didn't really give anything clear to show us now, other than one specific example, which I will address, which is that they used one specific example to show the independent party, which is Roosevelt. However, I'd like to, and the fact that he's an independent and he brought the United States back from a recession. However, this lacks proper grounds of success because this recessions in the United States have always been coming back, but they've always been solved. The United States has had several recessions in its history, but it's always came back. In fact, Theodore Roosevelt can't even be credited to solving it. What about the World War, which funded the economy? There are several factors which the op doesn't mention, and they just credit the fact that the economy came back due to the fact that Roosevelt was independent, but there were several other factors which they didn't mention at all. And finally, I'd like to state that the same negative impacts that the op is trying to push on our side applies to them. Corporate funding and corruption would apply more to the negative side, as Enoch perfectly mentioned in his speech. How would the negative impacts, not correlate to independence? Independence with more money, with more power, would have more opportunity to just do whatever they want. What's stopping an independent from, as Enoch also said, bringing in their own radical ideas and doing whatever they please? It would make no sense, and they completely dropped the argument that independence would do no wrong. There hasn't been any clear solvency in that situation whatsoever, and especially in the United States, where they only used Roosevelt as their main criteria of success. But even Roosevelt doesn't even have that much grounds of success, because we've seen that it can also be due to several other factors that the economy recovered. Even recently in the 2008 recession, the economy recovered just fine under two-party systems for as long as I can remember. So I urge you to vote nay for us, because our impacts are far more significant, and the fact of the matter is the op lacks strong grounds of success in their one only specific example. Thank you.
So in summary, for the affirmative speech, I'm gonna go over some of the things we talked about. So first, our advantages that without the party systems and with candidates running as independent, we will have candidates have their own values. Now both teams agree that the candidates who are running with the different parties, they do not agree with all of the values of those parties. So we all agreed that people running separately as independents can have their own values and do not have to agree with all of the party system values. So it will be better to have them run as individuals with their own unique values and innovations. Second advantage was that citizens will be happier. My opponents didn't really touch on this point of how a lot of citizens are already wanting to vote as independents. They didn't oppose our points of how there are a lot of people willing to vote as independents, so they will be supporting independent voters rather than party systems, and how independent system doesn't have as high of a chance right now because of the party systems, but they will be a lot more supported when there is just independent candidates, and how that will be beneficial to both citizens and the candidates, so the United States as a whole. And lastly, our third advantage was that the fair chance for all, a fair chance for all of the candidates and a fair chance for all of the voters. And this is the most important things. We talked about how about democracy and how the United States is a free country. So a fair chance for all should be really important and should be a voter for our judge today. So for all those reasons, I urge you, judge, to vote affirmative. Thank you.
The affirmation states that independent campaigns will be beneficial because they'll allow voters to vote based on policy, but they don't accept the realities of rational ignorance. Rational ignorance is defined as the rational choice that each voter makes towards political ignorance. It's the balance between their personal lives and their political education. While it may seem blunt, it's a fact that when an individual is faced between the choice of spending an hour earning money to put food on the table or spending an hour educating themselves on policies, they will choose to use that time to further their own personal lives. This is simple psychology. Our brains are geared towards the choice that provides more immediate gratification. It's within human nature. Rational ignorance isn't a cynical assertion. It's an established concept in any political science class. And furthermore, it's something that is solved with a two-party system. We can't change our system to modify our nature. We need to allow our nature to dictate a system that provides for beneficial politics. Voter cues from parties allow us to solve for this bias that is baked into the way that our brains solve problems, allowing voters to understand that if a party stands for their values, they can continually support that party. Furthermore, the affirmation has not responded to the point of how independent candidates will have less incentive to deliver on their promises to the electorate, since the plurality of the candidates will mean that the elections will be won based on media coverage. Independent candidates will be incentivized to pass policies based on what media companies want, since their coverage determines their re-election. Maybe this problem of the shift of power to the media would be insignificant if the affirmation had solved for the problem of the voters' natural inclination towards rational ignorance regarding their voting tendencies. But the affirmation has not solved for this problem. There would need to be a massive incentive to ask that of our electorate. Yes, we agree that there are different values within a party, even within the party system, but that doesn't mean that in an independent candidate system there would be less of this confusion. In fact, there would be more of it. The two-party system allows the electorate to participate in politics in a way that works for their personal lives and holds politicians accountable for their promises to the electorate, as they must run for re-election based on not only media coverage, but the beliefs of their support from the citizens in their party. Allowing for independent candidates whose campaigns are garnered solely on name recognition to split the vote means that inadequate leaders will be elected, further alienating the electorate from their politicians and completely corrupting our ideals of democracy. For all of these reasons, I urge the judges to vote for the negation. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank all the speakers for a wonderful, very informative debate. And as we come to the end of this debate, I'd like to call on Bill to come and give his closing remarks for this event.
Thank you, everyone. As John Michel said, my name is Bill Neeson. I am the co-director of speech and debate at Irvine Valley College. To end this with a couple things. First, I want to thank all of you for watching it. This is an important issue about how elections happen and how the world sees our elections can become an important issue, and I think it's something that it's amazing to talk to other nations about. Second, I want to thank my debaters and the debaters from iDebate Rwanda. Coming and doing these things and learning and meeting each other is one of the greatest opportunities I think we as teachers can bring to our students. The opportunity to meet people in other countries and talk about what's going on in the world just is amazing. I know in the past some of my debaters talk about these debates more than any competitive thing I do with them, more than the awards, more than anything, and I'm really happy we get to do it this year. I also need to thank Irvine Valley College. Obviously, we would not have the speech and debate team we do at Irvine Valley College without the support of the student government, the support of the administration, the support of my department. Everybody is involved in making us such a large and successful team, and I'm so proud to be a coach at Irvine Valley College. And finally, I need to thank Jean-Michel. Bringing iDebate Rwanda to Irvine Valley College was one of the coolest instances and one of the neatest things I've ever done. And I am just so glad we get the opportunity to continue our partnership and continue working, bringing debate to the world. Thank you all for coming again, and I appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you everyone who tuned in. And I'd like to, of course, let you know that we'll continue hosting this kind of debates, but please let us know what you think. Give us a response to the arguments that some of the students made. And of course, we believe that this format allows us to disagree, but remain very civil. So with all of that said, thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for such an awesome event. Thank you all the debaters.